If you really want to be a good boxer, you should start doing meditation and Tai Chi. Now, at the
Wow.
time, I was this 19-year-old kid thinking, isn't Tai Chi for old people in the park? How's that going to
Right.
help you be a better fighter, And I started doing the practice, and not only has it changed my life in many ways, but through the years, I've had over 26,000 students come through my academy, and I've heard hundreds of stories on how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives. And that's what's made me so given me the energy and the inspiration to go out there and create my last couple books and create my online program and my teacher training program and really just try to spread the word out there and help as many people as I can.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I could not imagine as a 19-year-old being able to find that center, right? It's just such a different state of our lives, and our brains don't fully form till we're 25 anyway. So, kudos for you to finding it so early. Welcome to Leading the Way podcast, where you'll learn neuroscience backed ways to lead more effectively and have more fun at work with what you already have. Hey there, it's Chris from Leading the Way. I am so excited that you decided to join us again and have another absolutely phenomenal guest. With us today is Jeff Patterson. Jeff, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hey, Jeff, I want to tell folks a little bit about you before we dive in. Jeff's got over 36 years experience practicing and teaching both the meditative and the martial arts. As the founder of Fighting Arts, Portland Tai Chi Academy, and the Yielding Warrior, he emphasizes the transformation power of meditative and martial arts practices, particularly the yielding concept, which we'll talk a bit about. He's published 2 books and hundreds of instructional videos. He's also the founder of the Yielding Warrior online program and has worked with thousands of students from around the world. Again, Jeff, so glad to have you here. And as we open the conversation, I'm just curious for you. You've done this a long time, but what pulled you into meditation? What got you motivated to start into that world?
I started as a fairly young guy and I wasn't interested in doing meditation. I had no desire at all. And I was at the time very much into Western boxing. And, I love the thrill of the sport, the challenge, the strategy, everything about it was just really inspirational to me. So I used to go to this boxing gym that's just a few blocks down the street here from my academy. And I would go, I'd be there 5, 6 days a week. I was working really hard. And I don't know if your listeners are familiar with how a boxing gym runs, but it's a lot different than your traditional style fitness class where you'll have a teacher that is running a group of students. Usually at a boxing gym, there's 4 or 5 coaches running around, and each one of those coaches might have a handful of fighters that they're working with. Well, at this one particular gym, one of the coaches had a very respectable reputation. He had created champions on the amateur and professional circuit. And I
Mm,
really wanted to get to spend some time with him. However, his card was full and he had a group of guys he was working with, and he didn't really have time to take on anybody else. And so I would always show up at the gym when I knew he was going to be there. I'd work real hard and try to get him to notice me. And after following him around for about 3 or 4 months, he finally started giving me some tips and helping me out a little bit with my boxing. And then, it was only maybe 2 or 3 weeks of getting to work with him. And he said something to me that changed my life forever. And that he said, if you really want to be a good boxer, you should start doing meditation and Tai Chi. Now, at the
wow.
time, I was this 19-year-old kid thinking, isn't Tai Chi for old people in the park? How's that going to
Right.
help you be a better fighter? And I started doing the practice, and not only has it changed my life in many ways, but through the years, I've had over 26,000 students come through my academy, and I've heard hundreds of stories on how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives. And that's what's made me so given me the energy and the inspiration to go out there and create my last couple books and create my online program and my teacher training program and really just try to spread the word out there and help as many people as I can.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I could not imagine as a 19-year-old being able to find that center, right? It's just such a different state of our lives, and our brains don't fully form till we're 25 anyway. So, kudos for you to finding it so early. Um, Tell me a little bit more though. I get that having a meditative practice and getting centered and letting go of the stresses in our body, but how does that create optimal performance, right? Outside of your meditation practice or qigong or what you do, how does that create more optimal performance?
Well, there's so many different ways that that meditation can help us improve our performance. You know, with when integrating meditation into your life, there's five different directions that you can follow with the practice. There's what I call the athletic side of the training, which is helpful for improving our performance. And it's why so many professional athletes these days are turning to the meditative arts. It helps with our timing and our awareness and our ability to stay in tune with the mind body connection. It helps us to focus and be present. I mean, there's so many different ways that it can improve our physical performance. Then
Mm.
there's the therapeutic side of the training, and this is great for our longevity and our health and working through injuries. Then there's the medical side of the practice, which all of Chinese medicine is based off of Qigong theory, which is very has a meditation base. And then there's the philosophical side of the training and also the spiritual side of the training. So
Wow.
as you start to dive into the meditative arts, you could follow any one of those paths.
Mm. Mm. And so, things are going to happen in our lives, right? They're not ideal. So this is building resilience. It sounds like in every single aspect, the physical, spiritual, emotional, all those things. So we've got a tool set to use instead of just being staying in suffering. Is that kind of on target?
Yeah, so when I think about the meditative arts, I like people to think of it as an evolving life practice, and it's something that we integrate into everything we do.
Okay.
And I've heard people through the years say, maybe they're suffering from panic attacks and they hear that meditation is good for that. And so they say, well, when I have an attack, I'll go meditate. And that's kind of like saying that, if I want an apple this afternoon, I'm going to go plant a seed this morning. You
Right.
have to you have to water the seed and give it some sunlight and give it some time to mature, and meditation is like that. You're going to get benefit from the first time you ever do it, but if you really want to see the true fruit or the true gold of what it has to offer, you need to have that consistency and put that time in. And if you do that, you can really reap a lot of benefits from it.
Nice. That totally makes sense. And it's the neuroscience of it, aside from all the other incredible, powerful things. I mean, our brains use so much oxygen as energy. And so I would imagine this introduces a lot more oxygen and, of course, the flow of chi uh, in our brains and in our beings. You talk a lot about yielding. And first, I'd love to know what you mean by that, because I think people could attach giving up, right, or surrendering in a way that's not being true to yourself. And then how is yielding useful and in your life?
So if you don't mind, I'd like to backstep just a minute because you were
Yeah,
talking about how the brain uses more oxygen in the body, and then I'll get to the yielding question there.
great, great.
So I think that's a real important topic to address because yes, the brain does use, I've heard 12 times more oxygen than any other cells in the body. And when you're doing a meditation practice, part of the training is breath work. And
Mm,
there's been studies done that show that the average person only uses between 40 to 60% of their lung capacity. And if this is you and you're having that low oxygen carbon monoxide exchange in the body, what's happening is every day we have billions of cells that are dying and being rebuilt. And if you're bringing less oxygen into the body, those cells that are being rebuilt are not as healthy as they could be because they don't have the oxygen and the energy to support that. And they've done tests, and there was actually a study at Harvard Medical School where they took patients who were suffering from Alzheimer's disease and memory loss. And again, these are patients who are a lot of them doing shallow breathing and probably using 40, 50% of their lung capacity. And they
Mm.
taught them deep breathing techniques and they put them into oxygen chambers. And they did this just for a short amount of time. And the group as a whole, everybody started being able to recall and remember 30% more than they did before they started this work. And
Wow.
this is one of the many benefits of a meditation practice, but by really cultivating our breath work and learning how to keep our lungs healthy and pliable and flexible so we can use more of our lung capacity, that one benefit alone should be enough for most people to want to take advantage of that, and so I think that's an important thing to touch on. Going over to the yielding question, yielding is one of the philosophical concepts in the meditative and martial arts, and something that I've been passionate about for many years. And in my latest book, The Yielding Warrior, I break down the idea of yielding into three different pillars. We have physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. Physical yielding is the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. And now I can respond with less effort. So I'm not trying to butt heads with you and see if I'm bigger and stronger than you. Now, in athletics, football, basketball, combat sports, whatever it is, you're going to come up against other athletes who are bigger and stronger than you. And if you don't know how to deal with that power and that force, you're going to lose the battle most of the time. And so yielding is very powerful in that aspect. Now, in order to be good at physical yielding, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The
Mm.
body has to be relaxed. The breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. While this may be a lifetime journey to really master these skills, from day one, by integrating a meditation practice in your life, you start seeing these things inside yourself with more clarity. And this is where it becomes very interesting. And now we're moving into what I call mental yielding,
Okay.
because when you start seeing these things inside yourself with more clarity, you also start seeing them in other people. And now, say, for example, you and I are having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you, and I pick up on it right from that first imbalance. It's a lot easier at this point to adjust the conversation and keep us in a happy place than if I'm not paying attention to that. And pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to knock me upside the head. And so
Right.
learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. One, we're being more considerate, which is something that we could all do more of. And
Mm-hmm.
two, it allows us to be strategic and guide our interactions to a positive outcome with the least amount of resistance. And this is great for relationships, business, sales, negotiations. I mean, there's so many different ways we can apply this idea. Then the third pillar of yielding is emotional yielding. And emotional yielding is very much like mental yielding, but with our own interpersonal conflicts. So you think about oftentimes something will happen to us and we'll respond and we'll go down this path and we might get an hour, a day, a week down that road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with
Mm.
yielding and our heightened awareness, when these things happen, we're able to stay more centered, more balanced, and not get emotional and oftentimes make a more educated choice that saves us a lot of heartache on the other side. And I've been explaining this idea of yielding for many years. I've been running my academy for 30 years now.
Wow.
And one of the most common things I'll hear people say is, yeah, yielding makes a lot of sense. In fact, I do that all the time. Well, I would agree in that I think everybody does some degree of yielding all the time, whether they label it that or not.
Mm.
However, It's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years. I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of.
Right.
And the meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that I truly believe that most people will go through life and never have any clue of without a practice like this.
It makes total sense. It makes total sense. And I'm curious, are there overlaps with yielding, maybe the emotional yielding, with the notion of empathy and validation? Are there some similarities or overlaps there at all?
I do think that you have to be empathetic and you have to have some of those qualities that make that evolve and make that awareness evolve. And that's one of the things that's really beautiful about the meditative arts is that it opens up your vision. So many times we get caught with this narrow vision and we see things in a certain way. And
Mm.
by doing a meditation practice, it helps us see things from multiple angles and open up possibilities and stay in the present so we're not so distracted by these things that are hitting us from all angles. And so, yes, I think that is a very important kind of idea with the practice.
Nice, nice. So, how do folks that are new to this, maybe, or they've done a little Tai Chi or Qigong, or maybe they've meditated a little bit, how do they identify sort of the best, for lack of a better description, prescription, or what's most useful meditation practice for them to start and to evolve?
I think that's a great question because there are so many distractions out there. You could literally go on YouTube and see a million videos on following this practice and that practice and the other thing. And, I always tell new students that are coming to the practice that I have three questions that I like them to really kind of consider and spend some time thinking about. And it's really difficult, for a teacher, for me to try to get people to see the true benefits of this practice because a lot of us are undisciplined. It's hard to do something every day on a regular basis and get to the where this practice really starts to offer all of its fruits. And
Mm,
so I find that by having people think about these three ideas, that I see a lot more success with people and I see them reaching that point where they stop looking at meditation like a chore they got to do every day and start looking at it as something they get to do because they see so many benefits from it.
yeah.
And the first thing is it's very important to think about why are you being drawn to this practice? Do you want to stay healthier into your later years so you can watch your grandkids grow up or walk your dog? Or do you want to learn how to deal with stress disorders, anxiety, or panic attacks, or maybe you have an illness that you're working through, or maybe you're an athlete and you want to improve your performance on the field. What is that that's really kind of making you investigate this idea of meditation? And then if you accomplish that and you reach that goal and you have that in your life, how is that going to affect you positively in all of the different ways in all of your relationships and all of your business or whatever it is, and really spend some time thinking about all of the different directions it's going to help you. And then flip the coin and think about if you don't do this, what are all the things negatively that could happen? Because if you
Mm,
spend some time thinking about this, it gives you a little bit of energy and motivation because we all feel this. It doesn't matter if it's tomorrow, next week, or next year. You're going to have a time where your alarm's going to go off in the morning and it's time to get up and meditate. And you're like, I'm going to hit the snooze button. I'll do it tomorrow. But
right.
if you have a reason and you have a strong why and a motivation to do it, now you're excited to get out of bed because you're doing this thing that's really offering you so many benefits. And then the second thing I like people to understand and spend some time thinking about is this is a discipline and it takes consistency. And it's something that we want to make a way of life and not a hobby that we do once in a while. And so I
Mm,
always tell my new students when they come in is that they want to develop a daily ritual practice where they do at least 20 minutes a day. They integrate some active practices that they can do when they're walking down the street or standing in line at the grocery store. Because, it makes no sense to practice and do your meditation in the morning and feel great. And then the rest of the day, you're stressed out and distracted. And so
Yeah.
having these active practices is really valuable. And then also integrating some philosophical practices that you can use in both the active practice or the ritual practice. And by building this and understanding that this is something that's a part of your daily life, that consistency will bring you that discipline, that integrity, that perseverance. And you won't only see that in your practice, but it'll start to bleed over in everything you do in life. And then the third thing, which is very important. And I already kind of touched on this with all of the distractions of apps and YouTube videos and ways that you could learn things, is you need to find a guide. I have
Mm.
never once in all of my career found somebody who's self-taught that has any kind of depth in their practice. And in fact, I've seen people come into the academy that have been self-taught, that have spent 15 years of their life diving into a meditation practice, and they'll come in here and see somebody who's only been here for a year that's much deeper into the practice, and they'll get a little
Mm.
frustrated sometimes. And rightly so, they invested thousands of hours into this and they're still kind of treading water on the surface. And so having a guide that can help shortcut you on the path to your success and what you want to follow with the practice is extremely valuable. We're not on this planet for a long time. Your time
Right.
is valuable, and having somebody help point you in the right direction is very important. And so those three things, I think, for anybody thinking about the practice, if you invest a little bit of time and really be open to those ideas, they can really help your success with the practice.
That makes total sense. Makes total sense. Is there an overlap in the meditative arts with, people talk about manifesting and visualization. I could see there could be a flow between that as you meditate. You want to visualize yourself being successful in a situation or bring something forward. Is there a spot there in these arts, or is that a totally different animal?
No, they are very closely connected, and when you cultivate a meditation practice in your life, you have underlying principles that help improve our awareness and help us improve our ability to direct our energy, which gives us different outcomes. I often teach people about what I call the five regulations, and these are basic fundamental principles that you cultivate in any meditation journey, whether you're doing a Tai Chi practice, a sitting meditation, whether you're doing yoga, whether you're doing standing meditation, it doesn't matter what it is. These things will help you and give you more depth in your practice. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly,
Mm,
I'll kind of touch on what I mean when I say these things. So,
yeah.
regulating the body, and the basic understanding of it is our skeletal alignment and our muscular tension in the body. So if you think about maybe a time when you're sitting down at your computer and you've been there 3 or 4 hours and your shoulders are rounded forward and you're feeling lethargic, maybe your neck's getting sore and pretty depleted. And then another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your
Mm,
body perks up, you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, these two different energetic states we're in control of all the time, but how are we choosing to spend most of the day? And so learning how to pay attention to our skeletal alignment and our muscular tension in the body is very powerful. And then a little deeper level of the body regulation would be maintaining some kind of muscular tone in the body, some kind of flexibility, making sure that we're taking in good nutrients to give us the energy we need and getting enough sleep. All of these things would be part of that body regulation. And then we have regulating the breath.
mm,
Regulating the breath is a very deep topic. And in fact, a lot of people will refer to Qigong as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies and ways that we can use the breath to get different outcomes in our practice. And
Mm,
because of that, we broadly categorize them into yin methods and yang methods. The yin methods are often deeper, more holistic style of meditations that bring the energy inward. They're great for stress reduction, anxiety, dealing with panic attacks, boosting your creativity. There's lots of benefits from this side of the training. And an example of a yin breath would be if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And this is the body's natural way to bring our conscious mind into our subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so,
mm,
if you want to emulate this style of energetic expression, we can do longer inhales, maybe soft retentions at the end of the inhale, and shorter exhales to bring that energy inward. Then we have the flip side or the yang side of the breath, which is more aggressive. And an example of that would be if you've ever had to push your car, you pick up something heavy, your natural instinct is to exhale, maybe put tension in the breath, make the breath audible. These are all ways to generate energy and expand it outwards. And so once we start learning how to use the breath as a strategy, and in Chinese philosophy, they call this balancing the kan and li, or the water and fire, it gives
mm.
us the tools to adjust our physical, mental, and emotional states throughout the day. And we all go through the day with emotional ups and downs. Some people are like a roller coaster, others may be a little more balanced. But when you start seeing yourself get excited, we can use the breath to bring it back down. And when you see yourself starting to feel depleted, we can use the yang breath to help bring you back up. And this
Nice.
helps us find more balance throughout the day. Then the next regulation is regulating the mind. And again, this is a very deep topic. Uh, One of the most common things I'll hear people say when they come to meditation is, I've tried meditation before, but I just couldn't quiet my mind. It didn't work for me.
Mm,
And somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that in order to be good at meditation, you have to reach this state of nirvana and be in a place where nothing can affect you. And, it couldn't be further from the truth. I've spent the last 36 years of my life traveling around the world, training with some really amazing meditation teachers. And I've never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. We're all human. We all get distracted. And when you understand that and understand that you're not being a failure with the practice and change your mindset, now you can get a lot more benefit and a lot better understanding of how it's helping you.
mm,
Because when you're meditating, say we're doing a sitting practice for 20 minutes or maybe doing a Tai Chi form, and you get distracted 50 times during that session. Every time you get distracted, you recognize the imbalance, you bring yourself back to center with your posture, your breath, your movement, whatever it is. And now you just got 50 repetitions of being off center, distracted, and coming back to center. And if you do that every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability almost to be unshakable, if you will, where it doesn't matter if somebody says something to throw you off your game or you have a stressful day at work, you're able to come back to that center and find that focus. You know,
mm.
there's there's this story that I really enjoy about these two old monks, and they're walking down this dirt road after a huge rainstorm. They come up to this big mud puddle, and on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl, and she's standing there in a white dress. She's crying, and the older monk yells across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So the older monk, he rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle and picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side and sets her down, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles down the road, and finally the younger monk is just furious and he says, "You know we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down and says, "You're still thinking about that girl? I left her back there at the puddle." You know, and how many times in life do we have to get 2 miles down the muddy road before we realize we need to let this thing go? And so
Mm,
regulating the mind is very important and something that we're always working on, trying to get better at recognizing these imbalances. And then the fourth regulation is regulating the energy. And this is a very deep topic and something that we could literally talk for hours about. But just to give you a basic idea of it, it's when we've reached a competent level of regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, we now have the tools to lead the energy inward in the body, extend it outward, to circulate it in the body, and to get different outcomes from our meditation practices. And then the last regulation, which is regulating the spirit, is a very profound idea. And it's something that monks and meditation masters will spend their entire life's journey working towards
Mhm.
that ultimate stage of enlightenment. But when you understand these five underlying principles of any meditation practice, you can see that it affects everything you do in life and can make everything more in tune and everything easier and just more aware of what you're doing and everything you do.
It's I love it. It's you're such a treasure trove of things, and I see so many overlaps with modern neuroscience that in its building up of resilience, it talks about how, our billions of interconnects in our brain, we can literally create different paths, right? So if something is triggering a fight, flight, freeze response and the cortisol and the adrenaline are going crazy, through things like this, through other techniques as well, you can build a different pathway. Like you don't have to keep going down the path um, that's creating so much disruption in your life, right? We don't have to stay in that mess. And it's neat that there's overlap with these practices that are hundreds, maybe thousands of years old. That's poetically that's fun for me.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. You've got all this experience and clearly lived this in your life. Can you tell me a little bit about? I know you have a program called the Yielding Warrior Program, and I'm curious, what that is and how it's different. You mentioned all the different meditation programs out there. What's
Yeah.
unique about it, Jeff?
So rather than teaching somebody a meditation method or a practice, I'm teaching them the science behind why we're doing these practices. Because I want my students that are coming to this practice or the people who are going through my teacher training program to understand how to show people to basically write their own prescription so they can get the outcome that they want. We already talked about the five different directions of the practice. Any one of those paths you can follow for the rest of your life and never get to the bottom, right? They're all very deep practices. And so if you don't have a direction and an understanding of what these practices are for, you could literally spin your wheels for years and really not get what you're looking for out of the practice. And so in my program, I teach people about kind of the basic overview of what the meditative arts are all about and how to use them to narrow down their focus and really get the most out of what they're looking to do.
So we talked about it a little bit, but modern Western world, at least, right? We've got all sorts of distractions. We've got the scroll and the dopamine hit there from social media. Any uh, election year event, holidays, all those things, work stressors being family, stressors of loss. I mean, these really apply to all of that, right? It's not like unique to. There's going to be some magical new stressor that
Right.
comes out that you couldn't use these tools to apply to. Am I on target with that kind of thinking?
Yeah, in it goes to the core of kind of who we are. I totally agree and see what you're talking about when you say that, we're so distracted with all of these things going on. We're tethered to our cell phones, we're bombarded with advertisements, we've got work troubles, we've got relationships, we've got all of these things that oftentimes, one of my longtime meditation teachers, he always talks about, everybody walking around wearing a mask, and
Mm,
oftentimes we're wearing these masks because we don't want to show somebody maybe how we really feel, or we don't want to maybe say something that m- sends somebody down the wrong path, and we're always kind of putting these barriers up. And what happens is when we live this way, we start believing that this is how it is, and we look at ourselves in the mirror and now we're still wearing these masks. And meditation is one of those things that helps us take these masks and these barriers away and really stay connected to who we are. And I think when you can do that, it helps in any kind of stressor. It doesn't matter what environment you're in or what happens, by being able to stay present and not be emotional and be able to analyze what's going on and really stay connected to what's really important to us. It's a lot easier to make educated choices that we don't regret later down the road.
Nice. Yeah, I can't think of a single person in my life that, and myself included in that list of that wouldn't benefit from bringing more of this in to what we do every day. Uh, so on that note, folks that hear this and are moved by it and know it's a direction they want to move in or they want to learn more about you, are there resources you have? We'll put them in the notes. So if you're working out or driving, please don't hurt yourself. But what are the best ways to engage with the work you do, Jeff?
So my website is theyieldingwarrior.com.
Okay.
If you go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book, I will send you a free copy of my most recent book. You just pay for shipping and handling. And also on that website, you can check out our 2-week trial to see what the program is all about and learn how to build an evolving life practice. Remember to keep those 3 questions in mind that we talked about earlier. And um, also on the website, you can get involved in our teacher training program. So if you're somebody who maybe has a yoga studio or a martial arts studio or a life coach and you're looking for another pillar in what you're doing, this is a great avenue to follow.
That's a great idea. That's absolutely a great idea. Thank you so much, Jeff, for doing this to serve others. I can tell that I'm making up, maybe I can't tell, but I would make up that you have deep care for humanity and wanting to see people be successful to do what you do. And if that's not true, I don't want to know because I like that
Yeah.
belief about you. But I appreciate your diligence to that and diligence to folks having these resources to be so resilient and be that peaceful warrior, for lack of a better word. I don't have the language that you do to describe this, but thank you for what you do. Before we close out our conversation for now, I would love to know, and I ask this of all my guests, is there anything right now or in the last couple of days that you're especially grateful or thankful for?
I just got back from a trip to India, and the amount of poverty there is just heart-wrenching. And, one of the things that I learned from that was having the ability to kind of step back and observe and really, I have grateful practices that I work with, every day. And it's easy to get distracted and stop being grateful for the little things. We've got
Mm,
fresh air to breathe. We've got water to brush our teeth with. I mean, there's so many things here that I think people take for granted, and they get caught up in thinking about how bad it is here and how bad our economy is or how bad our government is or whatever. And it's like, we are so lucky, stay connected to all the things that we're grateful for, because it's where we get all the value in everything we do.
nice. So well said. So well said. Listeners, thank you for being with us. As always, I encourage you to share this with a friend. Yes, it's great if you like and subscribe and do all the things for the algorithm, but more importantly, you probably know a friend that would really benefit from this message. And it's a incredibly loving thing you can do and say, hey, you might want to just check this out. Might be something here for you. So please do that. Please take good care of yourself and keep leading the way. Again, Jeff, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Leading the Way podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss other great episodes like this one. And if you're ready for more in your workplace, be sure to go to aintent.com. You'll find lots of free tools, assessments, and ways to engage directly with us to get your own epic results. We'll see you there.